22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. Today, look around America. We see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it.
This is the People Before Politics show, broadcast every Sunday at 6 p.m. Hosts Damon K. Jones and A.J. Woodson bring you the news that impacts our community. Join us for unfiltered, unapologetic coverage of the stories that matter most. Black Westchester Magazine presents The People Before Politics show, the news with the black point of view.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Damon K. Jones here, and I am the publisher of Black Westchester Magazine, and I want to welcome y'all to this special edition of Black Westchester Magazine, where we bring you the news with the black point of view. And today, I am honored, as always, to have one of my brothers on, health and wellness warrior who's been out here trying to educate people on health and wellness, trying to get them to be free of chronic diseases. And if you're on planet Earth, you know that black people, we suffer from the most chronic diseases and the highest percentage of chronic diseases out of any other ethnic group. And this brother's been on the front line. Dr. Cedrick, he's the self-care advocate, and he has a book right now. It's 7 steps to prevent chronic diseases. And this brother has been going to churches. He has been going to anybody that asked him to come and talk about how do we prevent chronic illness. He's been on the front line. And I called the brother because I did an article on Black Westchester Magazine when Trump appointed RFK Jr. Over the health and wellness. And, you know, I have to be honest with people, as someone who has written a couple of books on health and wellness and has documented my journey in fighting type 2 diabetes. In my research, RFK Jr. has been one of the biggest advocates from changing our diets, from changing the food that we eat, from processed foods, and getting away from processed foods, getting away from more of a whole food diet, plant-based diet, looking at the chemicals that are put in foods, even the chemicals that are given to chickens and beef and everything. He has been on the front line. Clean water. He's been fighting for clean water, and it's not taken away for any black advocacy group that is out there. I just felt his history of fighting for these things that we we actually benefit, it's beneficial to us. So, I reached out to Dr. Cedrick. I said, brother, man, you gotta, I need some backup. I need some backup. Black folks is killing me. They beating me up online. So he said, "Man, brother, I'm there, man. Let's just do it." So we made this special edition. So I'm about, before I bring my brother on, I want to actually play this video of RFK.
Put into their bodies these days, and most alarmingly, into the bodies of their children. And it's no coincidence that Americans die earlier than Canadians or Germans or Italians or Japanese or Koreans or Australians or most any other comparable country. And it wasn't always that way. Until the early 1990s, our life expectancy was the same or better than other developed countries. Then suddenly, more and more Americans began suffering from chronic diseases, from obesity, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and all kinds of autoimmune diseases. Our maternal mortality rate soared to the highest of any developed country on earth. Same with infant mortality. Like the frog in the slowly boiling water, we didn't really notice as we got sicker and sicker. We've grown now to accept chronic disease conditions as normal. But now, in 2024, we're finally waking up to this cataclysm, and we're asking ourselves, how in the world did this happen? Well, a big part of it is our diet. Restaurants that serve contaminated food are fined or shut down. But when it's the government that approves the poisons in our food, a few people get very, very rich, and the toxins end up in every supermarket aisle. Let me show you what I mean. Doritos, Cheez-Its, Cap'n Crunch, gummy bears. Everyone knows that these are junk foods, so maybe you wouldn't be too surprised to see that the ingredients include a lot of poisons, including a harmful yellow dye called tatrazine, or yellow dye number 5. What you may not know is that this dye was originally made out of the sludge that's left over when you turn coal into coke for blast furnaces. It's called coal tar, and I've actually sued many big industries for legacy contamination of coal tar all around the country because it's so toxic and it's so harmful to the environment and human beings. A century ago, it was just an obnoxious industrial byproduct that everybody was trying to figure out ways to get rid of. One of the ways that they did that was by paving roads. But then a British chemist figured out that the coal tar could be used to derive fabric dye. And if fabric dye, why not food? Food manufacturers began using it to cover up the discoloration of low-quality foods that they wanted to pass off on unsuspecting customers. They didn't know back then that this yellow dye, tartrazine, causes tumors, asthma, developmental delays, neurological damage, ADD, ADHD, hormone disruption, gene damage, anxiety, depression, intestinal injuries. Well, we know it now. We've known this for decades. That's why tartrazine is heavily restricted in other countries. In some countries, foods with tartrazine have a warning label that it may cause ADHD in children. Today, it's made from petroleum, not coal tar. Either way, it's crazy to add this to your kids' favorite foods. It doesn't even change the flavor. This yellow dye isn't just in junk food. It's in the foods that we consider healthy. It's in everyday kids' snacks like popcorn, mac and cheese, fruit snacks. It's in sports drinks like Gatorade and so-called vitamin water. It's even added to chicken broth, to corn, to pickles, to mustard, and to yogurt. And so, of course, our kids get sick. And we lovingly feed them chewable vitamins which have, surprise, tartrazine. And so the cycle continues until the coughs and asthma kick in, at which point you go to pick up some cough syrup. And yeah, you guessed it, tartrazine. I've been picking on tartrazine today, but that's just one of at least 100 chemical poisons that our health agencies allow into our children's food. I can make a video just like this to talk about Red 40, BHA, BHD, potassium bromate, chemical after chemical, and on and on and on. If just one of them can cause all of these problems, imagine what they're doing in combination. That has never been studied. If we took all of these chemicals out, our nation would get healthier immediately. We'd have fewer sick days. We'd have better focus. We'd have less anxiety. Our kids would learn more easily. We'd lose weight. We'd have more energy. We'd have fewer tumors and longer lives. It's not all dark. Over the past 16 years, the government has banned 8 chemical additives that cause cancer, genetic damage, asthma, and many of the other self-conditions as tartrazine does. And you know what's interesting? All 8 of those crucial steps forward in our kids' health were taken under President Trump. But the Democrats who claim to be all about health care have stood by watching other countries ban these poisons and make our kids sick, asthmatic, hyperactive, and depressed. They left them on every supermarket shelf in America. They even used your tax money to put them in your kids' school lunch. So their big food and their big ag donors probably gave them all that golden handshake and the big money hug. And their big pharma donors probably called them up and thanked them also, because now they're going to make billions selling Adderall, Prozac, and rescue inhalers. Enough is enough. President Trump and I are going to stop the mass poisoning of American children. Together, we're going to make America healthy again.
And that's it. That's it. And we're back. And I'm trying to hold on. Let me. And we're back. So I wanted to welcome my brother, my main man, Dr. Cedrick. Welcome, my brother. Thanks for coming, man.
Hello. Thank you, brother Damon. Hello, brother AJ. How you
Hey,
doing, brother? Thank
Yeah,
you.
man.
I want to thank you for that presentation you did at the church in Greenberg. The White
Yes.
Plains.
Thank you.
I got 10 pages of notes from that day. I'm like,
And we didn't even finish.
right, right.
Yeah, no, listen, I think this is a conversation that needs to be had. Unfortunately, in the media environment, and I've experienced a little of what you were talking about, Brother Jones, with regards to people are so trained that whenever they hear Trump, nothing good can come of it, right? Nothing good can come of it. Never mind the fact that RFK ran as a Democrat just the other day and then dropped out because of perceived injustices and unfairness, then struck a deal with Trump. And, now he's in Trump's cabinet, and they're poised to make him as the to oversee the Department of Health. Uh, you know that doesn't matter to people. Anything with Trump is what I've come to understand is just a huge turnoff to people, and it's unfortunate because they fail to see the bigger picture, which is we are talking about health, and we are talking about something that affects somebody we all know, if not us, our loved ones directly. And and I see a lot of the tactics that the media used against Trump over the last couple of years. I see that they're using those same tactics with RFK Jr. And unfortunately, because people still trust the media to the point where they don't research anything, they don't question anything. And I have friends, I have, people I love, people that are near and dear to me. They just never take a moment to actually look up the claims that are made. If it comes on CNN or MSNBC, it must be true. They never
Right,
say,
right.
"Well, let me go and see what he said in the context that he said. Was he joking?" That just goes right over their head, right? And so I feel that that is part of the issue at hand, where it has taken away from the discourse that needs to be had. And what we're talking about today is really important. So I just want to start by introducing myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Cedrick Batchateu. I am the author of a book called Self-Care Advocate, 7 Steps to Prevent Chronic Disease. Let me see if I can, well, I can't really show my phone, but It's Self Care Advocate: 7 Steps to Prevent Chronic Disease. And I'm someone who is a health professional, and I'm very passionate about health, especially when it comes to chronic disease prevention. And just to put things in context, in 2020, we spent $4 trillion on healthcare that year alone. And for all of that spending, today in America, 6 in 10 adults have at least one chronic disease, 4 in 10 adults have two or more chronic diseases, and 40% and 7 in 10 deaths today are due to chronic diseases. So we're spending all this money and we're getting very poor returns for all our money spent. So it's very inefficient. And of course, this is something that affects us because we all know somebody who's dealing with high blood pressure, obesity, heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, or any number of issues. So that's what we're dealing with. And I'm glad that we're talking about Robert F. Kennedy's policies because, you know, the last 20 years, no one has done what he's done when it comes to health. No one has brought up these things. And so it's odd that people who otherwise would be in favor of many of the things that he's in favor of dismiss him because of his political affiliations. That to me is odd. I don't understand it.
One of the things I want to ask you before we get all into Robert F. Kennedy, one of the things you said in Greenberg, and I want you to capitalize, I want you to expand on that, is the FDA and how it should not be one organization. You was talking about the Food and Drug Administration. You gave a great presentation. I'd like you to, if you spend a few minutes to explain that on our show.
Thank you. And believe it or not, Robert F. Kennedy holds a similar view. So the FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration. So they're responsible for approving a lot of the food products. I didn't say foods, I said food products that are out there on the market. They're the ones that approve of, the dyes like tartrazine that the video talked about. They're the ones that deem a lot of these things safe to consume. However, they're also the ones that run the studies on a lot of medications, a lot of vaccines, any new drug that's being tested. They have a role to play in it. So on one hand, they're dealing with things that we're consuming. On the other hand, they're dealing with things that are going to treat us if we get sick. So it's very easy to see a conflict of interest there because if I were, a bad guy, for example, and you put me in charge of the FDA, well, I'll tell you this: this is what I would do if I were a bad guy, right? Remove the Spirit of Christ in me, the Holy Spirit, remove that, and just let me be all about money. Well, I would approve foods and food products that would make you sick,
Right.
and would approve the drugs that would treat those diseases that result of the food of you consuming the food products that made you sick. You see what I mean? If I could figure this out, right? I don't think it takes a genius for somebody else in positions of power to figure it out. Okay, and so you have the fox guarding the hen house. Now he's going to steal a couple of chickens every now and again. Okay, so it is simply a matter of you need one entity that's going to be responsible for food. Okay, not full of scientists, but full of dietitians. Okay, and people that actually care about this stuff. And then you can have another entity that is separate, a drug administration that deals with drugs and medications and everything. Food is meant to heal. In the Bible, it tells you that food is meant to heal.
That's
Okay.
right.
But when you have a situation where food is making you fat, food is making you sick, food is making you diseased, food is contributing to all of these different things, you have a problem. And I am so thankful that we're finally having this conversation, regardless of the nonsense the media spews against this man. They're trying to character assassinate him, um, so that, they'll take something bad that he said or something bad that he did and then just play it over and over and over so that you ignore the good things that the man is talking about, which to me is ridiculous. To the best of my knowledge, outside of Christ, all of us have fallen short. So I don't know what people are talking about.
Right. Right.
One last thing, if you mind, Damon, one last thing you brought
No,
up
no, go ahead, because I'm trying to find
at the
something.
church. At the church, you talked about how we as a people are told that what we're dealing with is genetic and in our DNA. And you gave a great presentation about if this doesn't go on in Africa where we're from, then it's not in our genetics. You explained all of that, and if you can spend a few minutes on that.
Well, no, Brother Damon, and that's a great point, Brother Woodson. Brother Damon actually has the perfect example.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
I'm gonna let him share it with the audience because, and then I'll piggyback off of that. Brother Damon, talk about your diabetes and the whole genetic thing that the doctor
With your
told you.
mom,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So, when I started noticing that I was on the same medications that my mother was on, because I was her caregiver, and I'm looking at her medications, and I'm like, yo, I'm on the same thing. So when I talked to my doctor, he says, oh well, it's genetics, because your mother has it, so you're gonna get it, right? So I'm looking at the doctor, I'm like, bruh, I'm adopted, right? We don't have the same genetics, you know. So it's clear. It's not our genetics. It's our dinner,
Right. Not
right?
our
It's
DNA,
our
our DNA.
diet.
Right.
You get the same diseases as your mother and father because you technically eat the same food. You eat great grandma's secret fried chicken recipe that's been passed down from generation to generation to generation, and the macaroni and cheese and the hog mog and the chitlins and all these other things that we eat, that recipes are passed down. And not only that, if you look in our communities, the food that's available in our communities, in black communities. So they tell us it's genetic, and it's probably a small percentage that might be, but overall, we know if you change your diet, if you change how you eat, if you make sure that you exercise properly and you take the right supplements, you could definitely lower your high blood pressure, your high cholesterol. You could wipe diabetes away. I totally got off medication, and then when I had my car accident and I gained 45 pounds because I wasn't doing anything for a whole year, guess what came back? My diabetes came back because my weight went back up. So now I know personally, even with myself, when my weight went up, my diabetes came back. When I got down to 219 pounds, my diabetes went away. So guess what I'm trying to do? Get back down to 219 pounds.
Right.
Because I know at that weight, everything went away. So we have to start being more aware of how food and exercise and stress. A friend of mine, they watch him for cancer, prostate cancer. And one of the things he said that the doctor told him, don't get stressed. Do not get stressed, bruh, because that will activate your cancer. And who's the most stressed out ethnic group in America? It's the black community.
It's us, yeah.
Right. So even our stress, even living in the black community, because there's already reports that say, we are in constant flight or fight mode,
Fight or flight, yeah.
which heightens your stress because of the high crime and the conditions we have in our communities. So all these are factors in putting your body in disease, which creates disease.
One of the
So
things one of the things Dr. Cedrick said, he said, "Yo, you look good. What you been doing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm on a partial plant-based diet. I lost 50 pounds. And you know what I'm saying, I'm doing a lot of exercise." And going into what you were talking about, you said it's not in your genetics if you can change it. Things that are genetic you can't change, like being black. So I wonder.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
and I want to piggyback off of those points, brothers. To your point, Brother Jones, And I love that example because it goes to show that a lot of our people, a lot of black people, don't question the doctor,
Right.
right? And that is to their detriment because the doctor is a paid help. He's not your God. You're paying him or her for his or her for their expert opinions, right? You should be having a conversation to the best of your abilities with the physician. You shouldn't just go and just take things and not question things. You should be an advocate, a self-care advocate, meaning
That's
that
right.
before you even go to your doctor's office, you should have a list of questions about what you've observed, what you've experienced, what you think, what you'd like to know about, so that that visit can be more productive, more constructive to your health, right? A lot of people would have heard, hey, it's genetics, it's in your genes, and they would have taken it at face value. And in your case, it just so happens that you had, a trump card, which says, hey, I'm adopted, so how can it be genetic?
Exactly.
The point being,
Exactly.
if you take an obese kid, I don't care how obese they are, and you put them in, let's say, Hulk Hogan's family, back in his prime, back when they were all working on all this stuff, and he did what Hulk Hogan did, and you came back 6 months to a year later, would that obese kid still be obese?
Right. No,
Absolutely
absolutely
not.
not.
It's
Yeah.
we know it's impossible. It is impossible. As in, there's not even a 1% chance he would stay obese, going to the gym, eating right, being physically. It is impossible. So why then do we just take this nonsense at face value of things being genetic? You see what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
So, and to your point, Brother Woodson, you're right. If you can change it, it's not genetic. If you can change, I cannot change my skin complexion. Well, these days you got surgical procedures, but I'm talking about things that you can change through just diet and lifestyle. Okay. If you can change something, then it is not entirely genetic. You can even get taller if you do certain exercises, right?
Right.
But the point being is we have gotten comfortable with these answers. And like RFK said in the video, we're kind of like the boiling frog, where if you turn up the heat slowly over time, he never really notices that he's getting cooked
Right.
until it's gotten cooked, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's where we are, where if you go back to the 1950s, for example, and you walked around, how many obese people did you see in the street? Right, compared to now, how many healthy and in shape people can you see in the street? So we've just been slowly getting boiled like the frog in the pot. We've just been slowly getting boiled, and now we've gotten accustomed to chronic disease where if you turn 40, you turn 50, oh hey, you have high blood pressure, and we just accept it.
Right.
We don't question, we just accept, well, everybody
Right.
else has it. Well, just because they have it doesn't mean that's how it's meant to be. So once you eliminate the genetic excuse, which is something that our people have to deal with, and it is first and foremost psychological. Once you get rid of the genetic theory of chronic disease transmission, okay, then the question becomes what then is contributing to these chronic diseases? And this is where you get in, and I talk about this in my book, you get into conversations about, the seed oils that we're eating, because
Right. Right.
oil, these stuff, right? Grapeseed oil, the sugar that's in everything, white sugar in everything, the refined grains, refined bread, white rice, white this, white that, all of these refined products. Then you get into things like the GMOs that's in our food, the genetic modification of food products that we are consuming, and how they're so-called quote unquote safe, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Right. And then you get into food additives. Okay. You get into food additives like the food coloring. You just showed us a video of RFK talking about tartrazine, one food dye contributing to all of these chronic conditions. There are hundreds of food dyes, sweeteners, emulsifiers, thickeners, flavor enhancers, and of course, preservatives that's in our foods. And one of the things is this, we talk about, let's say meat, right? They're putting nitrates and nitrites on processed meats to help preserve them. Okay. those things have been shown to lead to colorectal cancer. We've known this. We've known this. Right? So the problem itself isn't necessarily even the meat itself, or you could say the apple or the fruit. The problem is the things that mankind is doing on God's creation, the things that we are adding on the meats that's making them toxic, the things that we're doing to the foods and the fruits and the vegetables that's making them, GMO, that's causing all these issues. And so what, and I believe it is first and foremost a mental hurdle that we have to overcome. Once we overcome that
Right.
mental hurdle, then the words of Robert, the effort, make America healthy again, that RFK is trying to do, then it all falls into place. Then it makes sense. Until you overcome that mental hurdle, you're just going to see him as a Trump acolyte. Well, I can't stand Trump. I can't stand MAGA, so I can't stand MEHA, Make America Healthy Again. And that's really the sad thing, that the same people that are so upset, so angry, would agree 110% if they sat down and actually read his policies. But unfortunately, the media is a very powerful tool of disinformation itself, because once they call you an anti-vaxxer, nobody wants to listen to you. Nobody
Right.
wants to.
Right.
We got a comment from Cheryl Brew Brownlee Fox. She said, I find it extremely interesting the loads and loads of recalls we experience weekly. Since COVID 19, every time I turn around, there are recalls, and there seems not to be an end to the recalls almost daily. Why is this, and what can be done to change or dead all these recalls?
Recalls of what?
Food, like just different, like every time you
Well,
there's like I got Target sent me a text a email message the other day, let me know that the batch of cucumbers that I just brought, that they act told me to throw them away because there was something, I forgot what it was in it. This happened like 2 weeks ago.
well,
There's every food. There's like they recall. They're giving you these things, and then they're telling you these things are not good for you, and you buy them, and then they tell you if you got this certain batch number, don't eat it because blah blah blah. We're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, even in the healthcare space, even in the drug space, you often hear of recalls. Hey, you've been taking this, it's been contaminated, this, that, and the third. This is why it is so important to have independent. This is why it's so important to have independent analysis. Someone to go over our food products, someone to go over this apart from the government agencies that are overseeing this, because you wouldn't have all these recalls if you had a proper system or organization in place that was meant to prevent this from happening in the first place. And so, you to that brother or sister, the person who made the comment, they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right. We have to get to the point where we understand that we're not as protected as we have been led to believe. And so everybody that's coming up and that's questioning the status quo is not bad. They're just going up against a machine, and the machine is well oiled, very rich, and does not want anything to change. And so they're going to talk to their friends in the media to demonize anybody that has anything to say about this. And so, yeah, that's what's happening, and I'm glad that they're paying attention. They're noticing. Like I said, at the end of the day, you have got to become your own self care advocate. You need to do what's good for you. Stop worrying about everybody else or thinking that somebody else is in charge of your house, is looking out for your best interest. You are looking out for your best interest.
I got another example too. Brother I just spoke to. So he started taking, and I'm doing this now too. And my father did it, taking a clove of garlic every morning. He was on all kinds of blood pressure medicine. He went to the doctor. The doctor said, "Your blood pressure's kind of low. What are you doing?" He said, I've been taking a clove of garlic every day." The doctor told him, "Stop doing that. Not stop taking down. Not let's take you off the medication. Stop taking the garlic." That's what the doctor told him. Stop taking the garlic. Damon, you're muted. I muted you because we could hear you when you was on the phone. You got to unmute yourself.
To
Yeah,
your point,
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Brother Woodson, that's a very good point. And people have to understand how the health care system is. Okay, your medical doctor cannot advocate for something that they aren't trained in. And most doctors are not very well trained in nutrition, and that's a fact. They're not nutrition. If you want nutrition advice, go to a nutritionist. And so, while I think it's silly, if I'm taking a supplement, not even a supplement, a food product that's helping my health, and somebody comes along and tells me to stop taking it, I'm gonna stop seeing him or her or they. Like forget about
Exactly.
it, right?
Exactly. Immediately.
Forget about it, right? But within our people, a large percentage of people would do what the doctor said and stop taking the garlic
Right. And stay on the medication. Right.
and stay on the medication. And so, go right back to that yo-yoing relationship of high blood pressure, low blood pressure, that nonsense. And so, what can you do? You can lead a horse to water. You just cannot make that horse drink. And so, all we can do is plant the seed out there. If it falls on good ground, it grows, it germinates, it grows and blossoms. If the worries of life choke it out, then there's nothing else we can do. We can just educate our people and let them make the decision that works best for them.
Well, I'm definitely my father. My father was definitely somebody. That's how I found out about the clove of garlic. He did that, and he eventually came off his blood pressure medicine. He
Wow.
was doing that. Yeah, he did. And then a friend of mine, Brenda, both her husband who has passed now, and her mother who she takes care of, they both had a number of ailments and stuff, and she changed their diet to a plant-based diet, and both of them were off their medication. The mother is not on any. She went to the doctor. All her numbers are good now. Like she had all these numbers, all these issues with. She changed her diet, and now her numbers are good. So I say this to share that I know it works, and I'm seeing it with my own body as of right now.
Amen.
I'm in my journey, and like I said, when I saw you, you noticed it. The first thing you said, "What am I doing? You look good." Like you noticed it. So I'm working on that. It's
Good,
just
good.
hard. It's hard. They make stuff that's not good for you cheap. So if your money's kind of low, you know what I'm saying, and then when you live in certain areas, or you have all these fast food and things that are not good for you, chicken wings and French fry, Chinese places and stuff like that. You have all those in your vicinity in these food deserts, and it makes it easier to get that stuff. And so you have to make the choice. You have to physically. I find that it's sometimes they say day by day. Sometimes it's meal by meal for me right now. I have to make the choice to have that healthier meal for lunch. Then I have to make that choice to have that healthier meal for dinner. Like it's sometimes meal for meal, and every now and then I revert back and you had that what I shouldn't have had, and Christmas is coming up and all that stuff. But you have to make the choice. So I just want to share that as my personal journey right now.
And you're absolutely right, because if you're low on money, you can't go to Whole Foods all the time, and it's going to be rough. And for a population group, an ethnic group in America that is near the bottom when it comes to economic stability, economic income, it's going to be more so difficult for us. Again, that's why we have to have people with policies that are going to benefit our communities, even if not only our communities. I don't know that you're going to have a policy that's going to say, this is going to benefit African Americans only. No, you need to have sensible policies that are going to benefit the nation as a whole, and of
Right.
course, our people will benefit included in there. And so again, it gets down to this. When we talk about healthcare, we talk about all these chronic conditions. Now there's a huge conversation going on about the role of health insurance companies. How they deny things with the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO, and that's trending in the news, and people are talking about it more and more and more. We're arguing over symptoms. You see what I mean? We're arguing over the symptoms, right? We
Right.
got to get to the root cause of all of this
Right.
stuff. And
Right.
United Health is not the root cause at all. None of these health insurance. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying what you've got to address is why we are so sick. Why is everyone so sick? What is causing all of this inflammation in our bodies, in our organs, in our systems that's manifesting? into chronic diseases. And when you look at that, when you have that discussion, you now realize that Robert F. Kennedy's policies are absolutely what we need, because to the best of my knowledge, I don't see anybody outside of him on either the Democrat or the Republican platform that are talking about the things he's been advocating for the last couple of decades. Actually, he's been fighting for a lot of these things for many years. He didn't just wake up one day and decide that, hey, I think this is what I want to do. He's been advocating for these things for the last Lord knows how many days, how many years, right? And they've called him a quack, they've called him crazy, they've called him an anti-vaxxer, they've called him every name under the book. The beauty of that is, once you've called somebody every name under the book, there's nothing more that you can do, right? I mean, look, just to give a good example, they've called Trump every name on earth, right? They've called him a racist, they've called him this, that, and the third, and it actually backfired. Right? He
Yeah.
had black votes, then everything, because it goes to show people don't care at this point. People want to know, do you have a solution to the problem that I am dealing with? And I don't care about your proclivities. I don't care what you do, your extracurricular activities. Can you solve this problem? And the people that are that are bashing RFK Jr. and trash talking him, what is their solution to the chronic disease epidemic? What is their plan for making America healthy again? What have they done over the last 4 years or the 8 years that President Obama was in charge? What were their policies? Did they address chronic disease prevention? Did they
Right.
address the food dyes? Did they address the sources of inflammation, the seed oils? I mean, look, all you got to do is this. I always say this: I would never take weight loss advice from a fat doctor. I don't care who you are, Doctor Day, I don't care if you were Dr. Dre. I would not take weight loss advice from a fat doctor. It just doesn't make sense. Now, look at RFK. The man is 70 years old.
He's in
Look,
shape, man.
look at his physique. I saw this man working out.
He's in
I,
shape.
I saw this brother working out at 70 years old. Now compare him to the current head of the Department of Health.
Yeah, exactly.
So for all these people out there that have this visceral reaction to RFK and his policies and the Make America Healthy Again initiative on the basis that he is working directly under Trump, I'd like to remind you, one, he ran as a Democrat. Two, Tulsi Gabbard also ran as a Democrat. Actually, she served as a Democrat, both of which are now working under Trump. So this isn't some sort of right wing, conspiracy or takeover. These people were Democrats literally like 2 years ago, right? And so they just have found a platform under Trump. So we as a people have got to stop being suckers for this political ping pong that's going on, right?
Exactly.
It is time, and I loved the voiceover of Malcolm X that you shared prior to this interview. Stop supporting people that just because they look like you or they say something that you want to hear. Look, I'll give you a good example. I have this brother in Christ, right? Way back from the Albany Church of Christ, my days in college. And we've been like this. We're like the bestest of friends ever since. I love him. I love him dearly. And we always get into arguments about politics. Not always. We agree on most things, but we'll usually talk about whenever Trump makes the headlines, and we'll talk, and he'll usually regurgitate whatever the mainstream media says. And look, I'm not here to defend Trump at all, but I want to look at him in context. Because one thing I've learned is CNN could say something about Damon Jones, and I wouldn't believe it. Okay, because I've seen enough of how the media can spin things,
Right.
take quotes out of context and everything. The point is, we'll get into it, and he just regurgitates whatever the mainstream media says. And so some of the points that I love sharing, we go back and forth, but one of the things that the media was saying was that Trump is a Nazi. Y'all remember that?
Yeah.
He's a Nazi, right? They compared him to Hitler. Hitler started World War II, which led to 75 million people dying. What's the comparison? what to compare? And then only for us to see Joe Biden sitting there with him, shaking hands, and smiling and taking pictures. And then you saw them at Notre Dame when Joe Biden was sitting next to him and she was fawning and smiling and everything.
Still,
Is
yeah.
this WWE? Like, what is this? So
WWE. Yeah, well, that's what it is.
that's what it is.
That's
But
what
the
that's what
government has always
politics is.
discredited people. If you remember, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King were communists and terrorists, but according to the FBI, according to the government. So
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? So to discredit them.
Yeah.
So we can't go by what those things what we're being told by. We have to look into these things ourselves and find
Right.
out who's
Um,
And that's the point I'm trying to make. But unfortunately, the typical viewer believes this stuff. They actually believes, that he's a Nazi or he had an insurrection, only for the Justice Department to reveal that they had 26 confidential human sources in January 6th. Some of whom may have been stirring up the people. So it's stuff like this that I wish people, and this isn't even to defend Trump. You don't have to like them. I don't care. But I wish people, when they heard something about a person's character, would go online, do a Google search, and listen to that person's
right.
words themselves. Because RFK, and I use Trump as a great example, because RFK is getting that same type of business
Right.
right now with the media.
Right.
And those people that believe that nonsense about Trump, all this stuff, and I mean, look, they said the man was going to violate the laws to benefit his family. They said this from the moment he first ran. Okay, to this day, I don't think any of his kids have benefited financially from his. To the best of my knowledge, maybe they, but I haven't heard of anybody
Right.
saying.
his son-in-law.
Well, but I'm talking about his
Oh
kids.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, in access,
Bro,
his wife,
yeah.
his
But
daughter,
let,
because his
let's
son-in-law. But
True,
yeah,
true, true.
but
But I'm saying that I haven't heard anybody say that they're making money directly. The reason I say that is because now we have a situation where those same people in the media that were saying for years that Trump is corrupt and his family's corrupt and all this stuff switch and change tunes when President Biden forgave Hunter Biden. Okay,
pardon him.
for the
Yeah.
last pardon for the
yeah.
last 11 years. So what was he doing for the last 11 years that needed to be pardoned? That's my point. Now they're saying, oh, it's a wonderful thing. It's a smart move.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, bro, that's politics, man. Like
That's what I'm saying, Doc.
I don't even
People,
put no weight into that BS because it's just hypocritical.
bingo.
Um,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
wanted to play this next video.
Yeah.
Um, so when we talk about health and wellness, and I had some old videos of the hearings of the U.S. Dietary Guideline Committee, and I want to play 3 of them. They're only like 2 minutes long, so we understand like what goes on. Like a lot of times we live in a world that we're fast paced and we're busy, and not everybody pays attention to what's going on, and not everybody knows what goes on in these advisory committees and what is being discussed. So I wanted to play a couple of these because it goes into what's happening today and why RFK is very important in that place.
I have no relationship whatsoever to the pharmaceutical company. I work as an internal medicine and critical care physician in the DC metro area, and so I practice both outpatient and hospital-based medicine. I actually came here this morning to call out the racism that is inherent in the U.S. dietary guidelines, but then as I got to look at this committee, I suddenly understood why it's such an intractable problem. This committee bears no relationship to the general makeup of the American populace, and whoever put it together is clearly still practicing the optics of tokenism. Now, that is not a attack on any of you as individuals, because I'm sure you're all very accomplished and very sincere, but it is outrageous to have a committee that does not reflect the American population. And as non-minority members of this committee, I should think you would be embarrassed looking around this table. But anyway, I want to talk about the health profiles of communities of color, which, as we know, are generally much worse than the general population. And why is that? It has to do with the guidelines coming out of this committee. I was co-author on a paper published in 1999 called Racial Bias in U.S. Dietary Guidelines, 2 parts. I would encourage you to look it up and read it. But I have actually seen illness caused by your guidelines. As people have already mentioned, the vast majority of people of color in this country are intolerant of the lactose that's in milk. Yet, because they think they have to eat this stuff, they go out, eat it, get sick, and think that they have some sort of intestinal problem. But in fact, when I encourage them to stop eating dairy, their problems cleared up. And so it's really outrageous to encourage people to eat foods we know will make them sick, particularly when the #1 reason advanced for dairy foods is its calcium content, but African American women are genetically protected against getting osteoporosis, so we're making them sick for no good reason. People who trash carbs left, right, and center here and never mention glycemic index. Whole food carbs that have their fiber are excellent. The ones that have their fiber removed, those are the problems. It's not carbs, it's the processed carbs. And lastly, there is no scientific or nutritional reason for people to be consuming dairy products. We have no more reason to suck on the teats of a cow than we have to suck on the breast of a postpartum weasel. And we've already talked about the hormone content that creates excess disease, such as prostate cancer, breast cancer. I tell people, as far as the nutrients contained in dairy foods, eating dairy products for the nutrients is equivalent to inhaling cigarette smoke for its oxygen content. It's not a good idea. So I want to encourage you, get the racism out, get the dairy out. Please do your job. Thank you.
And that was Dr. Milton Mills, a very outspoken brother. And here is Dr. Garth. I'm gonna play Dr. Garth Davis
in Asheville, North Carolina, though I'm not here on part of my city, which would probably ask you to replace the milk recommendation with beer. I am a board-certified weight loss surgeon and medical weight loss doctor. I've been treating obesity for 18 years, and I am begging this committee to please put me out of business. I am tired of cutting people open for obesity and rearranging their intestines, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that it's 2019 and we have a group of very smart people in this room, yet we are asking what we should be eating. It's absolutely crazy. And I'll tell you what, my patients are confused. They're confused by the guidelines, and they're confused by the discussions here, and they're confused by bad science. So I ask you to look at this science very carefully. Because I did. I wrote a book saying we should be eating protein first and we should be on ketosis diets. But you know what happens to these ketosis patients? They end up eventually on my operating room table when they failed this diet over and over again. We talk about it all the time. So I eventually went back and said, why am I failing the ketosis diet and why are my patients failing? And I studied this extensively. And I looked around the world because you know what? You've heard people here tell you that carbs cause diabetes, and yet when you look at the blue zones, they eat extremely high carbohydrate diets. When you look at the EPIC database, fructose is associated with a decreased diabetes, and in fact, taking 5% of your saturated fatty acid and changing it to fructose decreases your diabetes risk by 30%. People say insulin resistance and acting as if carbs cause insulin resistance. That is not true. Animal protein and animal fat causing intramyocellular fat, causing ceramide toxicity, causes insulin resistance. But our patients don't know that, so all they hear is protein, carbs, protein, carbs. I think it's crazy that I have to go and order a salad, complete with beans and all kinds of things, and the waiter asked me if I'd like protein with my salad. Well, how ridiculous is that? There's protein in my salad. The poor teenager who then hears me ask these questions to him just says, hey, look, I'm working a summer job. But this is what all my patients are dealing with. They don't know whether to go low carb, they don't know whether to go low fat, they're petrified of a banana. You could hold up a bank with a piece of bread, people are so scared of carbs. And it's ridiculous when you go to Okinawa and they're eating sweet potato and rice. And I'll tell you that my practice of my life has changed over the years, where I no longer tell people they're not allowed to come in and tell me what macronutrient they're eating. They're only tell me what plants they're eating, what foods they're eating. I want a whole food plant-based diet. So I asked the committee to get rid of the recommendation for a protein and rather focus on whole foods. The questions out there are complicated, but the answer is simple, and I refer to Michael Pollan. Eat real foods, mostly plants, not too much. Thank you.
Comment.
And I got one more. I think this is
At 16 years old with lupus. I had stage 4 kidney failure. I had blood clots that caused many strokes. I endured years of chemotherapy and steroids just to survive. Now, all I've ever learned never helped me with my health. It was always about survival. I did 3 years of genetic research at Carnegie Mellon. I went to medical school. I was chief resident, and yet I still needed medicine to survive. 12 years I was sick. And then 15 years ago, I changed my diet to a plant-based diet. I got rid of dairy, no animal products, and within 3 months, the lupus was gone. I have been healthy for 15 years with no sign of disease. I've had children, and I've dedicated my life to this. And over the past decade, I have helped thousands of people reverse lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, heart disease, #1 killer, all by getting them to stop eating meat and dairy and eggs and focus on vegetables and high nutrient plant foods. And the results are consistent and they are profound. As a doctor, my colleagues can attest to the fact that we are chasing down an epidemic of disease that we cannot hope to catch up to or overtake because people are getting sicker with every meal they eat. But you can make that difference because people don't know who to trust. But if the dietary guidelines say that people should be focusing on a plant-based diet full of vegetables and fruits, and they should be limiting or eliminating meat and dairy and eggs, they will have at least the right information to start making better decisions. Listen, both as a doctor that is desperately trying to save lives, and as a former patient who has almost died many times because I didn't have this information, I beseech you to take this seriously. This decision about what's recommended to the public about what they eat should not be based off of what's good for industry. It should be based on what's good for human health. And there are people who are suffering and dying right now from the lack of this information. So I ask you to take that seriously. The literature is clear, and the results we see are true. When you eliminate meat, dairy, and eggs, people's health gets better. So please recommend a plant-based diet. Encourage people to limit or eliminate.
no, that's it. Oh, there you go.
So, Dr. Cedrick, would you like to comment on any of the 3 videos?
Yeah, the most recent one, the female doctor who was talking up there, she had a great point that stood with me. She said, people don't know who to trust. And I just, while she was talking, I Googled just to remind myself what the food pyramid looks like. And of course, the bottom rung, the largest amount of food that we are to consume is carbs, right? And,
Right.
you know, and again, if we were talking about whole food based carbs, that would be one thing, because when you look at the glycemic index, I believe the second doctor mentioned glycemic index. A lot of people don't know what this means.
Right.
And so they just kind of have an idea that, well, carbs is bad and blah, blah, blah. People don't understand that foods have a different glycemic index value. And so what generally tends to happen is when a food product has been refined, such as, just think of white, okay? Just think of white stuff, white bread, white rice, white this, white that. Those refined foods, a lot of the nutrients have been removed out of those grains. Okay, a lot of the nutrients have been removed out of those grains, the fibers, the vitamins, the minerals. They've been stripped out of those grains, right? So the only thing that's left is really the endosperm, which has very little nutritional value, right? The value in a grain is really found in the germ, which has antioxidants and vitamins and even healthy sources of fats, and the bran, which is the outermost layer, which is full of fiber, right? So you have the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. The bran has the fiber. The germ has the dense nutrient content, which is the vitamins, the antioxidants, and the healthy fats. When you remove those two, you're left with the endosperm, which is pretty much just carbs for the most part. Okay. Now, there's a reason why food companies do this, because foods that have been refined will tend to last longer. So if you're going to have something that you want to stay on the shelf for a very long time until it sells, then you want to refine it. But it comes at a cost. And that cost is it's probably going to spike your blood sugar. Again, there's no fiber, blunting the rise of sugar, right? And because the food pyramid, the people that are supposed to oversee our health, right, and recommend things, obviously, for anybody who has never looked into this, there's obvious, big agra influence into this, right? There's companies and that are lobbying to include certain types of food in this. That's how it works. These people are not independently coming up with these conclusions, right? There's a reason why, because if you can recommend people eat more breads and milks and dairies and everything, then that's good for their business. People are going to eat that thinking that they're healthy, regardless of whether they're getting sicker or not. They're just going to believe the food pyramid. And so when you raise the curtain and you see the man behind the curtain and you see that he's no wizard, right? He's just a man with contraptions, then that's akin to you seeing the influence. And it takes us right back to the FDA of what may be happening, what is most likely happening behind the scenes, of how money is being exchanged, influence is being exerted, right? And so things are being approved despite their harmful impact on our health. And so people have got to be a little bit less naive. Okay. There are things that are taking place behind the scenes. There are things that are being approved of. So when you look at the food pyramid, personally, I don't buy this food pyramid nonsense. That's not what I follow for myself. I don't believe it for a minute. Okay. But people have to understand how we got to that point
Right.
and why it is that we're sick. Those fine folks on the panel, the food pyramid panel that were being spoken to, maybe I'm certain they have good intentions, but when you come up against $1 trillion business, $1 trillion
Exactly.
equity, um,
Exactly.
you're just not going to withstand that onslaught. I mean, look, you can only hold out for so long until they boot you out and put somebody else in there who's a little. It,
Exactly.
it goes back to being a self-care advocate, understanding that at the end of the day, you are responsible for your health, not somebody else. They can help you, but you are responsible for your health. Before you believe it, simply because a doctor said so, or you saw the celebrity tell you what to um, do your own research. And by the way, it doesn't take a genius or a college education to look into something. It really doesn't. Okay, in this day and age with Google and YouTube and everything, there are plenty of people that are podcasting and talking about this stuff, that are talking about plant based, that are talking about, for example, my position is we got to remove a lot of these additives. I mean, meat can lead to all these harmful things, but I think it is actually made worse because of the additives. See, if you remove the additives, now you have something that's more palpable, that's a lot more healthy. You see what I mean? And so, again, going back to RFK Jr. and some of the policy position he holds, we got to get rid of these things. We got to get rid of the food additives. We got to get rid of the colorings. Anything that has been approved, we need to find out who approved it. We need to find out why they approved it. We need to look at the impact, because at this point, we pretty much know. In my book, I talk about all of the chronic diseases that are linked to these food additives, these emulsifiers, these colorings, all of these things. Okay, we need to find out why they were approved in the first place, and then we need to deal with the people that approved it so it doesn't happen again, right? And so that's my position. And of course, even when you're going plant-based, while that's fine, you got to make sure you're getting organic stuff, right?
Right.
So it goes back
Right.
to your brother Woodson, of the economic situation,
Right.
that if you can shop at Whole Foods, great. Okay, you can buy organic with all that stuff. Wonderful, right? Pesticide free. But most people are middle class, man, or lower middle class. They can't commit to shopping at Whole Foods, man. You got to shop right down the block.
Right. Right.
So it becomes a challenge, even if you are trying to. Now, I'm not saying if just because you're lower middle class or lower income, you can't do it. I'm saying it is significantly harder for you to do it, right? And especially if you have kids and everything. So we need someone in a position of power and influence, okay, that's going to be advocating for these things, regardless of your political affiliation. Again, RFK was a Democrat literally a year ago. Okay, so I don't want to hear about, oh, it's the Republicans. He was a Democrat. His family is a long line of Democrats. He ran as a Democrat. Okay, so this is really an apolitical position, is the whole point of this. Never mind what these people have been saying, the political nonsense. Man, please, they will be fine. It's you and I that will not be, because we keep buying into this nonsense.
Right.
Things I wanted to mention. So you said lobbyists, which is a key word. All the things that are not good for us have big lobbyists. The tobacco people have a big lobby. The dairy people have a big lobby, and so on and so forth. Also, when you were talking about the fruit and vegetables, I was watching something. Even when you do get it from supermarkets, the importance of washing it, and sometimes wash the different ways you have to wash it to get the stuff off of it that
Yeah.
they put on it so it will last longer. You know what I'm saying? Even in the fruits and the vegetables, if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, um, we have these companies exist to make money, right? And that's not actually that's not actually a bad thing. We have to understand, nobody works for free. I don't go to work for free. You don't go to work for free. You have to make money. That's how you employ people. That's why people wake up and go to work, right? So I don't blame them for that at all. The challenge of is that most people are oblivious to all of the toxins that they take in. Now, I happen to believe the good Lord saw this, and he put in within us several systems to help us eliminate a lot of the toxins that we would be exposed to. I mean, otherwise nobody would live past 5 years old, right? The blood cleanses itself. Colon gets rid of waste. The kidneys filter your blood. The liver detoxifies you from anything. The lungs remove toxins and CO2 from your system, and your lymphatic system traps viruses and bacteria and things that don't belong to you and gets rid of them. Your skin sweats out toxins. So, running is actually really good for you, because, all these toxins that you're eating, you're breathing in, you're smoking, you're inhaling, you're exposed to. I mean, from the very things we put on our skin every morning. You look at, maybe like you use cocoa butter like me, you look at the lotion, you look at all the chemical ingredients in there. They don't belong in you, but you put them on your skin and your skin absorbs them. Okay, and it doesn't do good staying inside of you. It has to come out one way or another. So it's really good to sweat, right? So God, I believe, this is my belief now, God built these eliminative channels in us to save us, to buy us time. But many of us are completely oblivious to it, right? So two people can do the same thing and have different outcomes. What I mean by that is, two people, let's say identical twins, could eat, similar fashion. One gets cancer, the other one doesn't. Well, why is that? Well, because one was sweating, he was running, he was exercising, and his body, his eliminative channels were working, right? His blood was being cleansed, his kidney was kicking into high gear, his liver was doing its job, his skin was sweating, getting rid of these toxins, whereas the other one never sweats. he never sweated. He never exercised. He never did anything to get rid of these toxins in him. And so, of course, the body has now to compartmentalize these toxins in something called a tumor. Okay. And so now you have a situation where they were both doing the same thing, but they got different results. So part of it is, yes, these companies are going to do things to preserve their product so it stays on the shelf a lot longer. That is part of business. Okay, it is your responsibility to get home and make sure you give it a good washing, or better yet, just get something that is organic or just didn't have anything sprayed on top of it, ideally, right? But in the real world, most people cannot afford that. So we have to get what we get. And so it becomes upon us to be responsible to cleansing it, cleaning it, washing it, whatever it is that we have to do. And also we have to look at us, because I don't care how much you work to eat clean and everything, you're gonna fall short, right?
Right.
So you have systems in you that I mentioned, the aforementioned systems that God put in you to help keep you alive. You have to then exercise to activate those elimination channels.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of the toxins that you did allow to come inside of you, because they exist to get rid of them. And of course, one of the big challenges we face in America is we are a very sedentary people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We don't exercise anymore. We drive everywhere. And of course, if you live anywhere in the Northeast, it snows for half the year. So you're not going outside running, right? You're
Right.
staying
Right.
inside most part sitting down. You spend, 8 hours at work sitting down. You come home, you sit down in front of the TV, then you go to bed. At some point you have to exercise. You got to get your heart rate up. You got to sweat, and that is not happening for a lot of us. And that's a problem. That is, all of these things contribute to the epidemic of chronic diseases. So yes, the input is contributing to it too, but we do have systems that can reduce the severity of that, but we don't use those systems. And so this is why so many people are sick. And of course, this applies to Black people too. If we would just get out there and exercise more, sweat more, and do those things, I think we'd be in much better shape. So again, it gets back to what I've been saying throughout this interview. You have to be a self-care advocate. You have to take care of yourself. And whatever that means, if you're limited economically, that's understandable. But you can run, you can exercise, you can sweat. So those are things that are within your power to do, not your doctor's responsibility.
Now, you talking about when the vegetables and the fruits, where you can, how important is growing your own vegetables and fruits, if you
Oh
can?
boy. Well, that's a great question. Now, look, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because I got a couple of small tomato plants I started this year, but I'm nowhere near being self-sufficient. I think it's a great skill. I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, certainly if you live outside of the city, because I don't think you get much land up, in the city area, um, you know, closer to Westchester, maybe further north, you get a lot more land where you can actually, grow something in your backyard. I think it's always wonderful to be able to grow your own thing. I'm teaching my daughter. We have some tomato plants and some carrots, and earlier this year we planted an apple and a pear tree. You know, we got to wait about a year to get, because it's snowing right now, or it snowed yesterday. So we don't have anything to show for it yet. We have some buds that have come up or whatever, but we don't have anything to show for. I think it's a fun thing. I think it's always satisfying to eat something that came out of your own labor, right? Eating from the sweat of your brow. But for most people, most of us in Westchester, you're probably not you probably don't have enough land to do something like that. If you're fortunate where you have a farmer's market near you, go there, because that's probably where you'll get some organically grown things, produce. Usually, if it's anything like I remember, usually for cheaper than you would get at the supermarket, if you can. But if you can grow your own stuff, man, God bless you. You got a lot of land.
My sister started this thing out where she lives. I have to have local farmers. and the community can pay into them monthly,
Yeah.
and you get you get to go once a month and get a whole bunch of stuff. You know what I'm saying? They have for you packages and stuff. You're helping the farmer maintain his farm, and the farmer is giving you exclusive stuff coming from the farm, and that's in your community. So I know she just started doing that, and everything she does is organic anyway. So that's one of the things she was talking about last time I was down there.
Yeah, I believe they're called co-ops, farmers
Yes,
co-op.
yes.
Mm.
Yeah,
No, those are great. Those are great. Yeah, because you're cutting out the middleman, which is usually the superstore, the grocery store, and you're getting it directly from farmers. And speaking of which, I need to get into that too.
right.
Those are wonderful.
Damon, I know we going over the time we wanted. Any
Yeah.
last questions? Any last?
Brother, give them the information on where they could contact you, my brother, and where they could. I put on the bottom that they could get your book off of Amazon.
Yes,
But
sir.
if there's any other contacts that you want to give out for people.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah, my website is drced.com. That's 5 letters, drced.com. There you can see a little bit about, what I'm all about, my work, my book. I also have a course, the Self-Care Advocate course, where it's about a 3-hour long course with complete with activities and downloadables where you can, watch the educational video and do the workshop, and it relates to you, where we can take you anywhere from whatever chronic condition you have to, why I can't say cure, but you'll definitely see a major improvement in your chronic condition, whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, you're dealing with weight loss. My program is called Self-Care Advocate. It's a phenomenal program, and it's a gradual program, so it's never overwhelming. We're going to take you one step at a time, for a period of 7 weeks, and after which you should be tremendously impressed with the results of your body. But your body is a wonderful machine, wonderful creation, capable of healing itself and doing some wonderful things, and be a better friend to yourself. And with that, please let's hope that RFK Jr. actually does some of the things he said that
Right.
he's going to do with regards to the Department of Health, because it won't, while it won't only help African America, it's going to help us all. It's going to help us all. And I think that it is time for us to see what's been happening behind the veil, because too many people have just accepted things for the way they are. They don't question, they just believe, and they're like the frog in the pot. They don't know that the water's boiling, right? People around them are sick. Folks around them are dropping dead. 7 out of 10 people that are dying today are dying because of chronic diseases, right? So that means that's not even the Lord calling them home.
Right.
That's just chronic diseases. I mean,
Exactly.
you know,
God gave us choice,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we must have choice to eat better. We must have
yes,
choice to exercise at least 30 minutes a day.
yes,
We must have choice to stay away from stressful things
yeah,
that stresses us out. And it's amazing how I watched the health pundits attack RFK Jr. when our health in America is so horrible.
yeah.
It's almost acting like nothing's wrong.
Listen,
Hey, why is he coming? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Blah blah blah. But the health conditions of Americans is horrible, and the health conditions in Black America is a pandemic. See,
well,
we don't have these discussion, brothers, and we rarely have them in church.
yeah. There you go. Right.
You understand?
There you go.
Because look, if you believe in Christ, you should not be sick.
Right. Your
Right?
body is a temple, and you should be
Exactly.
working to make
And
it
you should treat it as such.
Yeah.
You should not be poor, right? You know, you should not be poor.
The
I don't
blessing.
know where we get this understanding that believing in Christ, we should be poor.
We should
Right?
accept pain.
Exactly. So we have to even change how we look at faith. I'm not going to say religion because religion is an institution. How we look at faith and how it reflects on our health, how it reflects on our finances, right? How it reflects on our relationships.
Well,
All these things.
and I want to, one thing you said that I love is it comes down to what you're willing to accept, right? A lot of us who are in the faith or who grow up in the church have heard that the Lord called him or her home. And I have crusaded against this nonsense. The Lord has not called any of these people home. Chronic diseases have. Okay.
Exactly.
The harvest is plenty, the laborers are few. Those are the words of the Lord. The Lord does not need you in heaven, he needs you here on earth.
Right.
But when a people have no answer for what is happening, they find comfort and justification in saying the Lord called you home.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why you can see someone die at 30 and people say, well, the Lord called them home. Not, well, what was his lifestyle? What was he exposed to? We don't do that research, unfortunately. The Lord called them home. But the Lord says, I don't need you home. I need you here on earth. The harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. The laborers have to be on earth for the harvest. Not, well, come on back, y'all. No, we know 70% of death are due to chronic diseases, not the devil, not God, chronic diseases. So if you're not talking about a solution for preventing these chronic diseases, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear about your theology or whatever. Okay? Because right now, those same pundits you mentioned that are bad mouthing, Robert F. Kennedy, that are talking trash about it, what is their solution?
Exactly.
What have they?
Exactly. Exactly. You know what is their solution for the chronic illnesses? Clearly, it hasn't worked, right?
They haven't put forth anything.
Medication upon medication
Yeah.
is that doesn't work. And here's the thing, brother. We know it doesn't work.
No.
It ain't even a question about medication. We know that it doesn't. We know that it doesn't work. I was watching. It was a comedian. He said he left his doctor to go to another doctor, or he moved and he had to get another doctor, and they wanted him to write a review for the doctor. Well, he said, well, I've been a diabetic under him for 13 years. He gets 1 star because he couldn't even fix my diabetes. So I'm going to give him a 1. He said, no, he gets 1 star, right? Because they understand that medication, it doesn't work. And another thing, brother, you said earlier, which a lot of people who go to their doctor don't know, that doctors are not taught nutrition.
Yeah. That's it.
They're not taught nutrition. And then you got the big pharmaceuticals and they just prescribe you. I want to prescribe you medication. I want to prescribe you medication, right? Well,
Right.
what about
As a lifelong customer.
Right. What about changing my diet? What about eating different foods? What about doing all this other stuff?
Well, and I'll say this. Listen, we spent $4.1 trillion on healthcare in 2020. 85, 90% of that was for treating chronic diseases. Okay. By 2030, it's estimated that we're on track to spend about $7 trillion dollars a year. So somebody is capitalizing on this, and so
Oh,
that entity that is capitalizing on this has a vested interest in making sure that the talking pundits on TV ridicule people like RFK.
hmm
Okay, so when you see the average person, they could have 20 doctors come on there and tell you X, Y, Z. I would take health advice from RFK on this basis. He could drop down and give me 50.
right,
Okay, at some point, you have to look at what do you call it? Don't walk by sight, but by faith,
hmm
and stop looking at somebody with a fancy degree and thinking that, oh, they know everything. Okay, look,
exactly,
if I have a chronic condition, yes, symptomatic treatment has its place, right? If my blood pressure is high, you know, give me, a medication for it, bring it
right,
down. But then
right,
once it's down, it's my responsibility to then say,
exactly,
what
exactly,
what can I do? Don't give me, smelling salts or, vitamins when my blood pressure is high. Wait till it comes down. I have it under control. Then I want to talk about, what am I missing in my diet? What am I missing? What kind of lifestyle am I leading? What kind of, uh, am I eating canola oil?
exactly.
What's going on?
But doctors, not all doctors are trained in that. See,
No,
and this is why
most are not.
we have to update. I think it's time, to update the training of doctors to make sure that they are well versed in nutrition. You
Well,
know,
They also get paid by the pharmaceutical
well, we
companies.
know that. We
yeah.
know that.
And Dr. Cedrick was talking about how certain doctors will always prescribe certain medications to everybody. And
Oh
then if you
no,
go to
no,
another
because
doctor, they'll
right.
prescribe a different medication because they're getting something from that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
And also, look, here's the thing. Uh, as someone who went through, pharmacy school, it's a very structured curriculum. Okay, to say that we just need to tack on something on top of the doctors, that's not going to be possible. And let me tell you why. Their curriculum is very stacked. Okay, it's very rigid.
Mm,
So it's a constant high stress environment, and so you're learning a certain way. Now, the idea of then introducing nutrition shouldn't just be a class. It shouldn't just be one class, right?
right.
Because you
No,
have
no,
about
right.
30 other classes that you need to take. If it's just one class,
Exactly.
it's going to come and go. You're going to forget about it. What has to happen is this. Either you're going to integrate it throughout the curriculum, or you're going to then subsidize programs, where you can, if you're diabetic, we can enroll you in a program with a dietitian, for example, health
Right.
insurance pays for it.
Right.
Something like that, where yes, you're seeing your doctor to make sure you're not falling off the wagon, but then you're also seeing a nutritionist or doing a program
Mm,
where someone is holding your hand and walking you through the guiding you so that yes, you're taking your medication or whatever, but then you're also making the dietary and lifestyle changes. If we had that system where we're saying that, look, if you got high blood pressure, you got diabetes, look, here's a dietitian that's going to hold your hand, here's a program that's proven to help reduce your A1C. Okay, you get that covered by insurance. If we did that, Damon, okay, we wouldn't have to even bother with the doctors. You
wow.
understand?
Right.
It would be something that, the insurance would pay a little bit more money, but I guarantee you they would say Medicare has a program, and I'm doing a little dabbing in chronic care management where they are reimbursing doctors for what's called out of office care. It's called
Mm,
chronic care management. And what they found was, even though they're paying doctors additional money for out of office follow up once a month, they're
mm,
saving around $900 per patient. So even though they're paying more money, they end up saving more money because it ends up reducing the rates of hospitalizations and emergency room visits that these patients have. Right.
mm.
So it's a proven fact that if we just invested, or you don't even have to change what the doctors are doing. If we just invested in uh, disease prevention programs, right? These same companies, health insurance company, would save money in the long run, because if
Right.
you get someone to change their diet while coaching them and guiding them and holding their hands and being there for them, okay, you're going to decrease the amount of medications they take, or decrease the frequency of hospitalizations that they experience. So from a financial perspective, I think it only makes sense to introduce these programs and subsidize these programs, because that's really what we have to do. But we also need someone like RFK to bring these things up about the food additives, all these different things that are causing inflammation, the
Right.
nitrites and the nitrates. Someone has to be talking about this. People have to know what they've been consuming and how it directly impacts their health. We have to stop saying that, well, the devil did this to me. It's not the devil, okay? But the Lord is testing my faith, because I've heard all this stuff from religion.
Right.
The Lord is just putting me through a trial. No, it's not. He's literally not interested in doing that. What kind of sick, twisted joke is this? Just because it happened to Job doesn't mean it's happening to you. That was Job's example, right? But people say this. Realistically, they say this because they are oblivious. They are ignorant to what they're consuming and what they're putting on them. They don't know. And so the way they make sense of the world is by saying, God or the devil, right? So I don't blame them, but it does come from a position of ignorance, because I was there and I have a lot of friends that think like that, right? And so we need someone like RFK to do these things, because it lifts up the curtains, and so everybody can see
Right.
what
Right.
it's consuming,
I
how
want
it's
to.
killing us.
I want to. There was a comment on Damon's page. Reverend Kev McCall. He said his health stance I support. He saved Minister Farrakhan's life. I don't know if he's talking about RFK in that. I don't know who he's talking about. And he also
Um,
said, "Peace, brother. I'm going to reach out to you about the report from the MVPD, which was absurd." He said he's going to reach out to you.
okay.
Coming to closing, can you any last words, advice, some inspiration? Now we didn't scared people. We didn't gave them a whole bunch of bit. Now can we get something that for them to some call to action or some
He
Yeah,
said something.
I
He
would
said
say this.
something.
Call of action is this. I would say this, okay? And this is all still around RFK Jr. Listen, we survived 4 years of Trump. Okay, it's not that bad. The world's not going to end. So people just maybe you need to tone down the CNN, MSNBC. Stop believing everything. It's for ratings. Okay, because they're saying that RFK, he's gonna do this. Man, please. Okay, we've in this podcast we've talked about some of his positions that, frankly, I support, and I make no apologies about that. And whether he was a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, it doesn't matter to me. What's right is right. And so at a certain point, we have to acknowledge that what we have isn't working. And the people that are talking trash about RFK haven't put forth a proposition. In their eyes, everything is fine. Okay? Everything is great. But we know everything is not great when 60% of adults have a chronic condition. And soon it'll be 70% of them, right? We know things are not great. So these people that are talking all this trash, forget them. I don't care what. I got a doctor in my name. Does that mean I'm right about everything? Exactly. So give the man a chance. A lot of his positions are actually wonderful, phenomenal, and there's a lot more people that support him. Believe you me. It's just people are not willing to put their necks out, because in this politically charged environment, any mention of support for Trump gets because like I said, I have a brother in Christ. He and I go back and forth all the time. It's almost like Trump could do no right.
Right.
Right. And Joe Biden and the Democratic Party can do no wrong. Well, and so it's like, no, you step outside of that, right? That's the matrix. Step right outside of that box and think for yourself. Any policy that's going to benefit you, such as addressing these food additives and all these toxins in everything, that is going to benefit you regardless of your color or your economic position. So that's a good thing. We need to support that, right? We cannot have this man be crucified before he's even done anything. And so if you have a chronic condition, first and foremost, get rid of the mindset that it is genetics. The overwhelming majority of chronic conditions are not genetics. Once you understand that it is not genetics, it is due to the food that we eat and the lifestyle we lead, then you're going to want to look for, okay, what can I do? A great place to start, visit drced.com, get my book on Amazon. I even have a place where you can get, I have a YouTube channel. You can access all that through my website, and you can watch videos and interviews and podcast interviews that I've done that will hopefully edify you. I have a program that you're more than welcome to take. That'll be a beneficial thing for you. I have a workbook. I have all of that on my website. So I think it's a great place to start. But there are many other channels, many other people that are talking about many of the same things that I am talking about, which is essentially you have got to become your own self-care advocate. And that's my 2 cents.
In closing, I do want to give you props. You've inspired me. I have your book, but then at the church you had a little $10 workbook, where people could work in there and everything.
Yes, sir.
Someone who's an educator is taking my book on Black women and trying to transform it into little workbooks for schools. You know what I'm saying? So I've learned that from you, like the whole you have your book, but then you have the little $10 version, the
Yeah.
workbook that you can speak from and all that, and how that's another level of income. So I'm just saying you've inspired me on that level too. So I'm just wanted to give you credit for that. So
Well, I got that from a brother online called Myron Golden.
Yeah.
Uh,
that's
Myron,
that's what Damon always tells me about. Yeah.
yeah, man, listen, one of the best speakers and teachers out there. So I got to give him
Absolutely.
props. I did
Absolutely.
his program. Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, I thank you, brother. I
Yes.
thank you for coming on, and you'll definitely be back because we're going to we're going to, in a couple of months, we're going to review what he has done
Listen,
and
let's
what
go
he has
over it.
did in this time. And I think that's that's just being honest and being straightforward. But that doesn't, it doesn't change what we have to do in our communities, in our communities being well aware of their health and wellness, and we have to start putting that first, man, because that's part of faith. And I think, as a people, we have gotten away from that. We're chasing everything else but our health and wellness,
Yes.
and we're stressing ourselves out, and we become so used to stress that we don't even know when we're stressed. Like we're just on 10, all the time. And I think we have to change that, But yeah, I mean, it's that goes into a whole nother conversation. We'll be here another 2 hours discussing it. But I want to thank you, brother. I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody that's watching from the different platforms, and definitely stay tuned.
This holiday season, give the gift of health at unbeatable prices. Vita Health Nutrition's Black Friday sale is here. Stock up on premium vitamins and supplements for up to 25% off. That's right, 25% off all products. From immune support to peak performance, we've got you covered. premium multivitamins, advanced protein formulas, essential omega-3s, and much more. We never compromise on quality. Every product is made in FDA-registered facilities, third-party lab-tested, GMP certified, 100% manufactured in the USA. Don't miss out. Black Friday deals start now. All products are 25% off using code VITA25, your trusted partner in wellness. Shop now at vitahealthnutrition.us. Wait a minute. For our Black Westchester family, you get an extra 20% off. With code BW20, that's 45% off for your health and wellness. Vita Health Nutrition and Black Westchester Magazine are committed to the health and wellness of our communities. Don't miss out on this special deal for the holiday season. That's a total of 45% off for our Black Westchester family. Take advantage of this deal while it lasts. This holiday season, give the gift of health at unbeatable prices. Vita Health Nutrition's Black Friday sale is here. Stock up on premium vitamins and supplements for up to 25%.
This is the People Before Politics show, broadcast every Sunday at 6 p.m. Hosts Damon K. Jones and AJ Woodson bring you the news that impacts our community. Join us for unfiltered, unapologetic coverage of the stories that matter most. Black Westchester Magazine presents The People Before Politics show, the news with the black point of view.